Hello and welcome. So, the end of the earth. That's a pretty heavy subject. Very interesting subject though. At least I know I was very interested. I wanted to know about these type of things. And then God revealed to me, showed me Isaiah 24. And that's what I want to show you today. It has some very important information. It tells us how the earth will be destroyed. And it tells us who it will happen to and why. Now, I've already did this video once, and it's a short chapter. It's only like 23 verses, and I read the entire chapter, and I explained it as I went through, because there are other sections of this chapter. It tells how everyone will be treated the same, and how there'll be no joy, and how no one will escape. And I explained each one of these, but it took a long time. And I understand how people are today. I mean, I'm the same way. You know, we got with this internet today, we all want information. We can get so much information. We want the information, we want it right now. And we'll sort through what we can use, and we'll disregard the rest, and we'll go on to the next thing. I'm as guilty as anyone. And that was a long video. I got a lot of negative press about that. So I'm going to redo this video, and I want to shorten it up. And I'm only going to read like 8 or 9 verses. And I'm only going to read the part of this chapter, Isaiah 24, that has to do with the destruction of the earth and its inhabitants and what happens to them, okay, and why. And I'm going to start with verse 1 of Isaiah 24. Behold, the Lord maketh the earth empty, and maketh it waste, and turneth it upside down. By the way, have you heard there's going to be a pole shift? You know, the scientists tell us, oh yeah, the Earth's poles are going to reverse north and south. You know, the magnetic north is already shifted in preparation for this event. But they tell us, oh, it's magnetic event, and GPS will be interrupted for a while. There's no big thing. Well, that's not what God says. God says He's going to turn the world upside down. Now that's a pole shift. Turneth it upside down, and scattereth abroad its inhabitants thereof. So now this next part, we're going to skip down to verse 4. He's going to tell us why this is going to happen. And who this is going to happen to. This is really the important part of this entire chapter, I think. So listen to who this is going to happen to. The earth mourneth and fadeth away. The world languish and fadeth away. The haughty people of the earth do languish. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because, this is important, hear this out, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinances, and broken the everlasting covenant. The earth is cursed and is going to be turned upside down and dealt with very violently, because the inhabitants have disobeyed the law and broken the covenant. Therefore, now whenever you see therefore, you need to say, oh, so what's that therefore? It's therefore saying, because the things I just read you, this is going to happen. Therefore hath the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants are burned, and few men are left. The inhabitants of the earth are going to be burned. The people that are on the earth at the time when this happens are going to be burned. The earth's going to be turned upside down. It's going to be violently shaken and broken because they refuse to obey the law. That's what it says. I mean, clear as can be. I know there's people out there saying, oh no, that law, I'm dead to the law. That law is gone. I don't want to be back under that curse. Well, according to this, if you break that law, you are under a curse. That's clearly what it says. Clearly what it says. And you don't have to take my word for it. I mean, just go by what Jesus said. Jesus said, don't even think. He said, don't even think it, that I came to destroy the law. He said, I didn't come to destroy, but to fulfill. Fulfill. Paul says that through one man's disobedience, Adam, came death. And through another man's obedience, Jesus, came life, reconciliation back to God. You know, obedience to what? Obedience to God's word, obedience to the law. And then Jesus tells you even more in the next verse. He says, anyone who breaks the least, listen to the emphasis here. Don't even think that I came to destroy the law. And he who breaks the least of the commandments and teaches others to do so will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. And he who obeys the commandments and teaches others to do so, he'll be called the greatest. You know, many Christians tell me, well, look right there. You know, I'll be there. That's the important part, you know. Always looking to do the minimum. Christian, I'm telling you, that's not going to work out well for you. And it doesn't say that anyway. If you read the very next verse, it tells you more about who's going to be there. He says, unless your righteousness exceeds the righteousness of the Pharisees, exceeds their righteousness, you will no wise enter the kingdom. Now, what was it the Pharisees that were doing that was so unrighteous? Jesus told them in one place, he said, you make the commandments of God to no effect, teaching for doctrine the traditions of men. The doctrine, the traditions of men. You know, you have to exceed their righteousness. So if anybody comes to you today and says, oh no, we don't need to obey that old fourth commandment. We don't need to obey that Sabbath. We don't need to obey that. We worship over here on Sunday for the resurrection of Jesus, or whatever reason they have, no matter how good it sounds, no matter how good it sounds their doctrine sounds, no matter how palatable it is. If they're teaching you to disobey God's law, to disobey the commandment, run. Get away from them. Get away from them. They're going to be in this group that's on the planet when this happens, and you know this is coming very soon, and we all know that. You know, God doesn't need to sneak up on people. Everyone has the same feeling that I have. I know you do. I know you do. You understand that a huge shaking is coming. It's right around the corner, and once it starts, you're not going to be able to. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult to get your wits and have time to think about what you need to do. You need to do it now. You need to do it now. Be obedient to the Father. Be obedient. Now, I want to go ahead and read the rest of this. I want to go ahead and start at verse 18, talking more about the earth and what's going to happen. It's very interesting. And it shall come to pass, let's see, and the windows on heaven are open, and the foundations of the earth do shake. The earth is utterly broken down. The earth is clean dissolved. The earth is moved exceedingly. This is going to be a planetary destruction, you know, on a planetary scale. The entire earth is going to be involved. There's not going to be any place to hide or get away. The earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard, and shall be removed like a cottage, and the transgression thereof shall be heavy upon it, and it shall fall, and it shall not rise again. You know, it's interesting, another place Jesus is talking about this event, and he's talking about when this happens, the stars from heaven will fall to earth as a fig tree when it's shaken. You know, so the stars are stationary and the planet is rocking back and forth. So you can imagine when the planet rocks back, it's going to appear that the stars are falling to earth as they sink below the horizon. You don't want to be here when this happens. You don't want to be a part of this. You know, Jesus said, it is written in the prophets, they shall all be taught by God. Those who have seen the Father and learned from him cometh to me, and I will raise them up at the last day. At the last day. Right before this happens, Jesus is going to come and resurrect and take his people off of this planet. This and the people that stay here, you know, the dragon, the false prophet, and all the people that believe in that, you know, the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet, and all their followers, they're going to stay with the planet. That's what they want. That's where they're going to stay. You know, in another place in Isaiah, it says, talking of this same event, it says, and the earth shall be moved out of its place. And I thought, out of its place? Its place is in orbit around its star. So if it's moved out of its place, it has to be moved out of its orbit. That's the only place the Earth has. Now, if it's moved out of its orbit, if this event is so violent, it causes the Earth to move out of its orbit, it's gonna go somewhere. I mean, maybe it'll go into space, or maybe it'll be drawn into one of the larger planets, Jupiter, or something like that. But what I think will happen is it will be drawn into the sun. It will not be able to escape the sun's gravity. It says in the book of Revelation that the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet, and all of its followers, all those who worship the beast, will be thrown into a lake of fire. The sun, a lake of fire. And they'll be tormented there day and night in the presence of holy angels for eternity. You don't want to be there. You don't want to be there. The destruction of this planet is coming very, very, very soon. And you don't want to be a part of it. You now know why it's going to happen. You now know what you need to do. I hope this helps. I don't like to make these dark videos, but I got to tell you the truth.